Brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Behaviour Revolution Scriptures. And I hope you're enjoying going through this text with me. It's really been a phenomenal experience for me to start exploring the true meaning of the Scriptures and then putting them into a 21st century context or colloquial, way of talking so that people can readily receive it, So these are the Behaviour Revolution Scriptures. And remember, on our second page, it says, bringing Yahusha's eternal blood covenant of deliverance to all generations in the 21st century. What does that mean? As soon as Adam and Ḥawwa disobeyed Yahusha and they were booted out of the garden, Yahusha stepped straight into deliverance mode and he started restoring his people back to tree of life, having his esteem, having loving marriage relationship with him in the home, in the Garden of Eden, that kind of experience. The whole point was to restore mankind, and we're not yet, to the tree of life. And it's all going to culminate in the marriage feast, when he comes back. But he had to bring in an eternal blood covenant because he is perfect and wholesome and good and just light, pure light and love. And we are the opposite. We are flawed and we are lawless. We have our own mind about everything. And so the two can't be mixed. He can't marry a bride in that state. So throughout the Scriptures, we see him establishing a covenant, a blood covenant. You do this and I'll do this. I'll do this and you do this. Handshake, shed the blood. It's a formal cutting of the covenant all the way through the Scriptures. So there's not multiple different covenants. He gave the covenant to multiple different people and he tweaked them here and there and added little bits to them based on what that generation or that person or what he was doing, most importantly, in that time period. But there's only one. There's only ever been one eternal blood covenant. So the whole purpose of these Scriptures is to bring that same ancient path, that same blood covenant of deliverance to all generations in the 21st century, from ancient Hebrew to everyday English. So, because it's all about his covenant home. It's all about him dwelling among his people. And we're getting closer and closer to the point where the covenant is going to shift slightly and he's going to dwell amongst his people. But I'm getting ahead of myself at this point. Right now, today, we're going to talk about Noach. Where is he? There. We're going to talk about Noach. But before we get to Noach, and this is a phenomenal story what Yahusha does through this man, before we do that, we have to set the scene. And we're going to talk about the Nefilim. Now, you can get lost on YouTube for months at a time, researching, watching YouTube clips about Nefilim, fallen angels, fallen messengers, Malachim, and what the repercussions of that are today. Aliens, deep underground military bases, the government, the conspiracies. Are the aliens from outer space or are they from underground? Underground is hundreds of years advanced in technology to what we see on the surface, so we know all that. I'm not going to go into all that today because that's just another rabbit's hole of itself. If you want to know some good videos to watch, message me and I can send you the links, because I've done documentaries over the years about the Nephilim and the immortality and what that means when Adam and Ḥawwa lost their immortality and when we're going to get it back. The two resurrections, and also today what mankind is still doing, polluting the human genome. And that's what it was all about. Remember the last few videos we've done about what Ⅎ𝗏 is trying to do, trying to pollute the human genome, because remember, Adam and Ḥawwa, mankind is created in the Creator Yahusha's image. So because of that, we are a constant reminder, a constant witness, if you will, that he's getting destroyed. We were made in the image of Yahusha, and that just infuriates him. So he's going to tear down everything, not just from the simplest thoughts he gives us to degrade us, but right down to total possession, and also our carcass itself. He's trying to breed underground. He's got wacky, mad scientists underground doing some pretty perverse, crazy things. And so the odd time that some of these deformities or creatures have escaped to the surface, people have thought, oh, it's an alien, it's an alien. Well, it is, but it's not from outer space. How can there be aliens from outer space when mankind is the most supreme, most amazing of Yahusha's creations? There's nothing more amazing than, because we're made in his image and he's amazing. So anyway, like I said, I don't want to go into this whole thing about the Nephilim, about what it means today. You can look that up. Look up transhumanism, look up, what was the other word that I kept forgetting? The singularity. Look up the singularity. They're all trying to upload their memories into robots and live forever. All that binary stuff that they're doing. We've done documentaries, and like I said, if you want to know about it, contact me and I will send you the link to the videos that we've done over the years about those sort of things. And they go for hours and hours, and they go into great detail about all these things. Today I just want to concentrate on the scriptures, because the scriptures are all about love and light and deliverance. So let's go there. So let's set the scene. Ready? Nephilim. We just finished last week about Enoch, Kenog, and how he was taken He was taken into the other dimension, Yahusha's dimension. And we saw also how there was the genome was being tampered by the people back then, because we're talking about nearly 2,000 years, 1,700 years. That's a lot of time to have not very much information about. We jump almost from Cain and Abel, and we've got little bits of the puzzle from the book of Yahusha and Jubilees and things like that. We've got little pieces of the puzzle to fill in the gaps, but there's not really a lot much said between Cain and Abel and Noach. There's not a lot said. So this has helped. I hope last episode helped you to see that they're still doing the same thing. Breeding, doing horrible things, setting up idols, worshipping gold and silver and wood and stone and all sorts of mad stuff, having their own personal deities. And they were trying to get their women to stop falling pregnant. They didn't want their bodies to look tired and worn, and it's all going against what the Creator's perfect will was. So now we come to the Nephilim, and the scripture makes it pretty official that something hideous is going on. After the Garden of Eden, mankind increased upon the earth for almost 1,700 years. A third of the messengers who had fallen with Satan saw that the daughters of mankind, the women, were indeed beautiful, and in their unstoppable lust they saw an opportunity to take on flesh and fulfill all of their carnal desires. Some people have tried to say that this wasn't about anything lustful as in sexual. What do I mean by that? I mean, it wasn't like the unclean spirits were having a good perv on the ladies going, oh yeah, I'd like some of that. No, because they're spirits. The main point of what they wanted to do was get into a human body. So in this case here, it wasn't so much about the fact that they were just perving on the women. It was the fact that they saw an opportunity to take on flesh, so that they could fulfill their lusts of the flesh in flesh. They didn't have, because that's the whole problem with unclean spirits and why they're at us all the time to do filthy, horrible things, because they can't do them themselves. They don't have a body. They're the most wicked, perverse, depraved creatures. So is Ⅎ. But they can't fulfill any of it unless they have a human body to do it in. So this is where it all started here. They saw that there was an opportunity to take on flesh and fulfill all of their carnal desires. They seized certain women and taught them how to use divine power improperly. Took them, made them do it. I mean, the women had to go along with it, but So they seized certain women and taught them how to use divine power improperly, divination. And through the use of herbs and potions, they had sex with them. How does that work? Don't ask me. But somehow they got unclean spiritual seed, which normally has to come from the man, the seed, the sperm has to come from the man, into the woman's womb. Somehow they got supernatural. This is why it offended Yahusha so much, because it's divine. It's something that we don't know how to do. It's divine power. He knows how to do it. Yahusha knows how to do it because he did it himself when he came into the flesh. He put the seed into the womb of a virgin, of Miriam. And that's how he came into the world as a baby. So there's a lot of divine power that we don't know about. And that's why it was so offensive in the garden when Adam and Ḥawā were tampering and doing things that they weren't supposed to do with the dragon, who was introducing them to, sexual things, trying to mix the seed, tamper with the genome, the human genome. It's all about tearing down the human genome. And today, you see what it's like today. There's laws. You can't. It doesn't stop people, but you can't marry your sister or your brother or your cousins or second cousins. I think you can go third and fourth cousins maybe, but you can't tamper. Otherwise your kids will be retarded and things like that. You can't. Back then, they didn't have any of that. You could do whatever you liked. So these unclean spirits wanted to take on flesh, and so they did. They taught the women how to use herbs, put themselves into some kind of state, and they had sex with them. These women then fell pregnant, giving birth to the Nephilim, meaning fallen ones. Now, Nephilim doesn't have to mean ugly, grotesque beast like behemoth, hideous creature like we all think and see. Google's just riddled with pictures. I mean, look, let's have a look for a second. If you look up here, it's full of them. Just have a scan down here. They're always talking about unclean spirits and Nephilim, seizing women. Here's one of them down here. They're always beasts. Here's this big crude beast creature. Movies are going crazy with them now. Over the year. Back when we were talking about it 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of a rare thing. We didn't see much about this sort of thing. We were kind of on the discovering all this, but now it's common. All the believers are into it. They're all talking about conspiracies and Illuminati and all that stuff. And I mean, how boring! You can't put that symbol on your video or whatever because you're worshipping the devil and da 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 and da da da. Oh, it's so boring, brothers and sisters. Who cares? But you can see here that there's lots of Nephilim and giants and bones they're digging up. Some of the bones are fake and some of the bones are real. Some are photoshopped and some aren't. We know it's real because Scripture says it happened. Not only does it talk about it here, but in other parts in the Scriptures, David and Goliath of Gath, he was a giant. When they first went into the covenant land, they had to overcome the giants and fight off the giants. So we know there were giants, okay? There were giants. Let's go back to the Scriptures. These women fell pregnant, giving birth to the Nephilim, meaning fallen ones. My point there was they're not always ugly, grotesque, hideous creatures. Today, they could be quite beautiful and attractive. In fact, scientists are trying to clone the human genome all the time. So you could have a quite beautiful person sitting next to you, but they won't have the spirit, the ruach of life in them because only Yahusha can give that. You can't reproduce that through, genome tampering. You can't do it like that. That's the problem with the unclean spirit. They have to come in and inhabit the creatures. So, am I making any sense here, brothers and sisters? If I'm not, then go and see the other videos and do your own research on all this stuff. It's fascinating if you want to know about it. I'm going to go on with the Scripture. These Nephilim creatures were a deformity of the human genome, and many, not all, were grotesque hybrid monsters and hideous giants with a thirst for violence, lust and murder, devouring and having sex with both mankind and beast. So not only were the women giving birth to these hideous creatures, and as they grew up they were giants and hideous creatures, most of them, they started ripping into mankind, not only sleeping with them, having sex with them, they were just carnal beasts, savages, rooting everything in sight, having sex and eating people, and then when they'd run out of people, they'd start on the beasts. So you can see here, and at this point too, until the flood, there were dinosaurs as well. So there's all sorts of wacky stuff going on the earth. What a dangerous place to live in, brothers and sisters. So, not necessarily at this time, but, and I think it was later on when Noach's sons were getting attacked by them that Noach prayed to Yahusha. But the point is, these spirits responsible for this abomination were seized by Yahusha and chained up in the depths of the earth to be judged later. But the remaining demons and the spirits of the Nephilim themselves still wander the earth to this day, pestering mankind with the most depraved, filthy, degrading thoughts, hoping to destroy and tear down all human life created in Yahusha's image. And you can see those words under there. That's what they fill people with. That's what they want. I wrote a song years and years ago called The Big Bad Nephilim Man. You can Google it, you can YouTube that too, it's there somewhere. Maybe I'll put it at the end of this video. And it was all about the fact that when we read the book of Enoch years ago and we saw, because the church doesn't get taught any of this. Back when we were Christians, we didn't get taught any of this. We were taught about unclean spirits, or demons. But when you understand that these creatures, these real unclean spirits that rebelled with Ⅎ𝗏 were kicked out of the higher realm and came to earth and just to spread havoc on mankind, pester them and torment them, and eventually sleep with the women and create beasts and monsters. This is why there needed to be a global flood to wipe out all this stuff. We saw last video that Yahusha sent little tidal waves and tsunamis and little floods here and there to wipe out when it got too bad, but it still kept going. It still kept going. Something really cataclysmic needed to happen, but we're going to get to that. So the main point of the song and the video I wrote years ago was to say, I know who you are now. I was talking to ℕ𝗏, which you're not supposed to do. But back then when I wrote it, it was like, I know who you are now. This voice in my head, I know who you are. You're not some beautiful, bright, shining creature. You're a filthy little demon putting on flesh. So Yahusha chained up a certain amount of these. I forget how many, you can look it up. He chained them up in the depths of the earth somewhere. They're recording it. There, look, there's demons down there. We can hear them. It's not a physical earth. He put them somewhere. We don't have to know where it is, but it's not on this physical earth. Depths of the earth to be judged later. They're chained up. ℕ𝗏's not chained up though. But the specific demons who have names in the book of Enoch that were responsible for this great lawless wickedness of sleeping with the women, polluting the human genome, which Yahusha cares a lot about. That's why we're not allowed to murder, because you're slaughtering something that's made in his image. We're not allowed to do that. So they were chained up underground, but the rest of them that weren't chained up, and remember, the Nephilim that were slain in the flood, that were drowned, that were destroyed in the flood, what about their spirits? You know? There's all this stuff going on, brothers and sisters, taunting us all the time, tempting us, pestering us. Do you face that? They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They're unrepentant. They will never, ever, 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 ever stop. So we have to get strong and start fighting. Not physically fighting, but inside ourselves, booting out things that aren't supposed to be there. Not listening to things, not entertaining things in our minds that we shouldn't be. So look at the time. I'm 20 minutes in and I haven't even got to Noach yet. Dreadful. So these are the Nephilim here. This is just a visual representation to show you their height, how big they were. You can see down here, the average size of a man, based on this chart, is about 6 foot. Now, I'm about 5'7", I think. So this guy here is 183 centimeters. That's the average man. You can see him down there. And then all along here, we see them getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Look at this dude up here, 11 meters high. And I've put a note here. This is almost 4 stories high. 4-story building. That's how tall they were. And there's evidence. People have been digging up bones for centuries of the Nephilim, the giant people. There's still giant people today. Not 4 stories high, but they're, you know, definitely the second guy and the third guy. There's definitely people that tall that are around. So these are the Nephilim giants. And they want to fill people, pester people, mental disorders, depression, murder, suicide, hate. If they can get someone to hate themselves enough to kill himself, then they're very, very happy. Because that's another person gone. Another person that's not reminding them. Another person that's not in standing there having Yahusha's image to themselves, and they're not allowed to have it. They don't have an image. They're spirits. They're invisible. So let's continue, brothers and sisters. For nearly 2 millennia, 1700 years, from the very beginning in the garden, Shaitan, the enemy, was desperately hijacking mankind's DNA to corrupt everything pure. The earth had become a disgusting cesspool of disobedience. And as time went on, Yahusha saw that the untampered, pure bloodline of Adam was rapidly becoming extinct, and that the thoughts and behaviour of mankind's heart was wicked continually. And he was greatly distressed and regretted ever creating mankind. So do you understand all that, brothers and sisters? He's been hijacking mankind's DNA. And he's still doing it today. Hijacking mankind's DNA all the time. That's why everybody's sick and dying of something. Every second person's on some kind of medication to stop them from having certain symptoms or certain sicknesses or certain death-like death. They're on medication is running rampant. The pharmaceutical company, that's a whole video in itself. We're not going to go into that. Pharmakia, drug sorcery, all that. It's all the end of days, brothers and sisters, and we're living in it. And we just got to get by the best we can, work our jobs, support our families, just so we can stay on this earth as long as we can. Tarry on until Yahusha comes back. So we're not going to get into, oh, you're on meds, or you're from the Illuminati because you take Panadol, and you all this rubbish. It's your walk, brothers and sisters. You got to work it out between you and Yahusha. What's best for you in His sight. A system is a system. We live in the system that's laid out for us to use the system, work the system, but we're still set apart from the system, being set apart and trained inside ourselves to be the bride. That's the most important thing, brothers and sisters. Not what you're wearing, not what medication you are or are not taking, what kind of water you drink and what kind of food you eat and da-da-da-da-da. Clean food I'm talking about. I'm not talking about pigs and all that. I'm not talking about the chair of the leg, or, you know, not talking about eating stuff that's not food. The point is that the DNA is being corrupted, brothers and sisters. And Yahusha could see the DNA was being corrupted. And he wasn't having it anymore. Because how was he going to redeem mankind if there wasn't a pure bloodline to bring it through? Because he's pure. Remember, he's perfect. The earth had become a disgusting cesspool of disobedience, and as time went on, Yahusha saw that the untampered pure bloodline of Adam was rapidly becoming extinct, and that the thoughts and behaviour of mankind's heart was wicked continually. Wicked continually. From the moment we are conceived in the womb, we are wicked. Oh, what a cute... He's just a baby. He couldn't possibly... Yes, he could. Not only after he's born, but even before he's born. Every child is born into wickedness. Every child is born with evil behaviour. Face the truth, brothers and sisters. They're just like us. And the scripture says, the behaviour of mankind's heart was wicked continually. So anybody who wants to say, oh, it doesn't matter what we call Yahusha, he knows my heart. Yes, he does. What is it? Doesn't matter what I call him, he knows my heart. So, brothers and sisters, as time went on, Yahusha saw that the untampered pure bloodline, it was all about the untampered pure bloodline of Adam, was rapidly becoming extinct, and the thoughts of mankind was wicked continually. He was greatly distressed, and regretted ever creating mankind. He was so furious, and he said, these beings I have created are so vile and disgusting. I'm done with them. In 6,000 years, I'm harvesting my chosen bride and restoring it. But for now, I will destroy all mankind and beast and bird of the sky and wipe them all from the face of the earth. There will be no more interfering with my grand design any longer. I've had enough. I'm sorry I ever created these perverse creatures. What about that? For Yahusha to say something like that? And we've seen the videos prior to this where he's just so happy. It was good. He was so ecstatic with his perfect creation. And look what's happened. He's ready just to flick the switch. He would just destroy them all. Can't stand them. They're wicked, perverse creatures. Look what they're doing. They're shagging beasts and, you know, each other. And, you know, the beasts have taken over the earth, and it's just such a wicked cesspool. DNA has become corrupt. These beings I've created are vile and disgusting. I'm done with them. In 6,000 years, other translations say mankind will not live for, I'm giving them 120 years. What that actually means when you look at the Hebrew is Yahusha, Yahusha was getting mankind, or Noach anyway, to count Shemitah cycles. A Shemitah cycle is a 7-year period, and every 7 years, or every 6 years I should say, on the 7th year was a Shabbat rest. So not only did they have to rest every 7th day, every 7th year was a Shabbat rest. And for the land was to be rested every 7th year. That was a Shemitah cycle. This series of sevens goes all the way through the scriptures. Seven's a very powerful number when you look at the symbolism of it. So the Shemitah cycle, a 7-year cycle. Six days they worked, 7th day they rested. 6 years the land would be harvested. On the 7th year the land would rest. When you're counting Shemitah cycles, 7 lots of those Shemitah cycles, 7 sevens is 49 years, and on the 50th year was a Jubilee year, where all the slaves were set free, your debts were paid, you didn't have any debts. And so this concept of counting time, a Shemitah cycle, that's how they counted time. So why am I telling you this? Because it's not 120 years that he gave mankind. If you just read your Holy Bible and look, oh look, we're not allowed to live over 120 years anymore. He's given them 120 years to live. That's what we all thought. Oh, they're not going to live over 120 years. Well, that will be okay for today, because not many people, if anybody, does these days. But back then, we still saw that people were living for 300, 400, 500 years after the flood, as the ages started getting less and less and less. So that can't be right there, because after Yahusha declared this, people still lived over 120 years old. So these Shemitah cycles that we're counting, it was 120 Jubilee years. So if you times 120 by 6, which is the 6 days, you end up with 6,000 years. So if you don't understand that, send me a message, I'll explain it more. But he was counting Shemitah cycles. Noach was counting Shemitah cycles as well. He didn't just suddenly wake up one day and the flood was coming. He knew round about when it was going to happen. So I'm done with them. In 6,000 years, I'm harvesting my chosen bride and restoring it. So he's given the earth 6,000 years. And then on the seventh day, 7, on the last 1,000 years, there's going to be a rest. Imagine that rest, having no unclean spirits, having no dragon. He's chained up. ℚ is chained up. So, he's just declared, I'm destroying the earth with a flood. Then we have Noach. There was, however, a man named Noach who walked a path of obedience with Yahusha and found favour in his eyes, having clean and perfect behaviour among those of his generation. When Noach was born, he brought great comfort and joy to his parents, who worked hard farming the earth that Yahusha had cursed. And when he was grown, he joined his father and grandfather in proclaiming the instructions of Yahusha to an unrepentant and lawless society. The book of Yahusha goes into that a bit more. We saw in our last video how there were men, I can't remember their names now, descendants of Adam, that still continued to be obedient, and they proclaimed the instructions to their families and they taught it. You didn't have to go out there and proclaim it to the nations. They just proclaim it to your family for the amount of time that you were alive, and all the descendants that would come from your body. That was enough. It was all about raising your home and declaring it to your family and raising your family the right way. So we saw that Noach got in on that. His father, Noach's father, was righteous, or I don't like that word. He had a right relationship. He was obedient. That's the better word. He had an obedient relationship with Yahusha. I'm trying to cut words that sound religious, righteous, grace, and glory, and all. Half of them are pagan and half of them are just downright Christian, and I can't stand them. They have a horrible feeling with them. We have to be righteous. Oh, forget it. What does righteous mean? We're talking to 21st century people here. Speak in everyday English. What does righteous mean? A righteous person is somebody who it's in the word. They have a right relationship with Yahusha. They're obedient. They're overcoming in their behaviour. It's all about behaviour, all right? Bringing forth the fruits of righteousness, right? I just said it again. I'll have to fix that scripture too. Bringing forth the fruits of right behaviour. So let's keep going. Shut up, Mark. Keep going. Because it begs the question, why did Yahusha decide to use Noach? Scripture just says he was upright, clean, perfect behaviour. Well, how did Yahusha know that? Because, Noach was 500 years old before Yahusha decided to speak to him. So in that 500 years, he must have been behaving a certain way to get Yahusha's attention, to say, okay, Yahusha was already so riled up that he wanted to destroy the whole earth, but he saw one man who he saw he could use and continue the blood covenant, continue the line. So when Yahusha first spoke to him, Noach was 500 years old and he had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Yahusha said, come on, move. Yahusha said, the end of all flesh has arrived. The whole earth is wicked and violent, and I'm going to destroy them all with floodwaters. Every creature that has my breath of life in it is to die. You, Noach, are different though. Your behaviour is perfect in serving me, so I'm going to raise up my eternal blood covenant of deliverance with you and spare the lives of you and your family. So build yourself an ark. Here we go. Before I go into that, he says to him, I'm going to make a covenant with you. I'm going to build up. That's what cutting a covenant means. Raising up something. He's going to raise something from nothing. He's going to raise up. And this is all in the Hebrew, so when it talks about raising it up, when you look at the words, he's going to raise up my eternal blood covenant of deliverance. It's eternal, it doesn't change. There were different signs and different bits and pieces to them all, which Yahusha fulfilled. And fulfilled does not mean abolished. Fulfilled does not mean it no longer stands anymore. But he tells him now to build an ark. Now this word ark is very interesting too, because, and I've been looking into that recently because I wanted to know about the Ark of the Covenant a bit more in Exodus. But the word ark is very interesting. There's only 2 instances in Scripture where the word ark is used. In the original Hebrew, that is. One time is here with Noach, build yourself an ark. And it's talking about a vessel for deliverance, a covenant home to be delivered in. The only other time that the scriptures mention the word ark is the little miniature version of this that Musha, Moses' mother, put him in. Practically, and she would have known the story of Noach. So she built a tiny version of it and put Noach in it and sent him down the river. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But that's the only 2 times that the word ark is used. Ark of the Covenant, that wasn't the same word. It's a different word. I don't know why they've used the word ark. I like the word ark. It makes it sound fantastic, all the Raiders of the Lost Ark and all that sort of stuff. I love the word. But the ark that they carried around in the wilderness, that was just a box. In fact, the Hebrew word for that, it just represents like a chest or a tomb, a chest. But the tomb of the covenant doesn't sound very enlightening, does it? The tomb sounds like death and morbid. The chest of the covenant, the chest of the covenant witness. So I'm looking at all that right now, deciding what to call it. The BYNV says the witness, which is good because it was witness to the marriage covenant. But there's only 2 instances where the Hebrew word that we render as ark is used. Once with Noach and the other time with Moses when he's born. So build yourself an ark from gopher wood, a special covenant house, with lots of rooms, covering it inside and out with tar to waterproof it. So it needs to be 137 meters long, 23 meters wide and 14 meters high. That's just a bit taller than that Nephilim back on the other page. Put a window 1/2 meter from the top and a door in the side. Make sure it has 3 levels. Then you, your wife, sons and their wives will enter this vessel when I tell you, and will be protected from the destruction that is coming upon this planet. You will also take 2 of all living creatures, male and female, and enough food to support you all. And Yahusha told Noach approximately how many cycles of time he had until the flood, and Noach obeyed all that Yahusha instructed, and in steadfast belief spent almost 100 years labouring and building the huge ark that would become his family's deliverance. So I'm not saying similar to us, as in the days of Noach. I'm not saying Noach knew the day that the rain was coming, but considering he spent 100 years, I believe he knew around about, based on the Shemitah cycles, the cycle of sevens and the Jubilees. It took him pretty much two Jubilee cycles, or 100 years, to finish this big boat. And just like us today, we can look at the times and the seasons, because he says he makes known to us. You're not just my servants, you're my friends. I make it known to you what I'm going to do. Not just through the prophets, but I make known to you what I'm going to do. So we can look at so we're watchmen. We're looking at the times and the seasons and looking at the world and all the filth and wickedness and depravity going on in it. And we know that it could be any time, but we don't know the day or the hour, but we know the time is soon. And I believe it's going to be around about the time of Yom Teruah, the day of the shout. So that's a whole nother video in itself. So like here, Noach didn't know the day or the hour, but he knew the time, the roundabout time in the season. He was counting cycles. I'll just put a picture in there for you, so you can see just in our 21st century understanding how big this ark was of Noach's. You can look at that yourself in your own time, but you can see the Queen Mary, these big cruise ships that they're doing, and then you've got the Titanic here, a bit shorter, the Wyoming and the Santa Maria, and you can see Noach's ark was just over 500 feet long. So 100 years have passed, so we're jumping 100 years now. When it was completed, Yahusha was very pleased with Noach's work and said, "Let's go, Noach. I'm sending the rain in a week. It's time to take your family into the ark. Gather 2 pairs of every unclean animal, as well as 7 pairs of every clean animal and bird of the air, male and female, to preserve my creation." So it wasn't just 2 of every 2 by 2 they walked in. No, it wasn't all just like that. It was only 2 of the unclean animals, as well as 7 pairs of every clean animal and bird of the air, male and female, to preserve my creation. Preserve it. There was nothing wrong with the creation. It was mankind that was the problem, and what the unclean spirits had done with them. There will be rain and floods across the whole earth for 40 days and nights in order to destroy the wickedness of mankind and its abominations, abnormal births. But while death is all around you, inside you will be protected. So Noach and his family made the final preparations, then watched in amazement as all the animals, birds and reptiles entered into the ark, 2 by 2 in harmonious order. In harmonious. Do you believe that? Do you think he had to go out there with his whip and round them all up? Do you think he had to do that? Where would you find every single species of animals? I mean, this was a supernatural occurrence, brothers and sisters. So once it was ready and it was all set up, there is an interesting movie with Russell Crowe as well. It's totally off base as far as... Then Yahusha shut the door to his covenant ark of deliverance. I found that actually quite funny. The fact that the ark of... I'm going to divert for a minute. The ark of the covenant that they carried around in the wilderness shouldn't have actually been called the ark, because it wasn't the Hebrew word for ark. But this one here which was all about preserving Yahusha's covenant and his bloodline, and it's just another step in the restoration process. This was actually the Ark of the Covenant. This should have been the Ark of the Covenant. That other thing should be called something else. But I'll get there when I get there. But the point is, though, I found that play on words really interesting. This was actually the Ark of the Covenant. This was a covenant ark, because the actual Hebrew word was ark when you render it back. So, in the 600th year of Noah's life, the foundations of the earth cracked open. Earthquakes, releasing every mighty fountain of water from the deep, as the hard canopy of water surrounding the earth. Remember we talked about the hard protective canopy around the earth when Yahusha created it? So we had the water, and then we had the sky, and then we had this hard canopy around it, all glass-like, all the way around the earth. Yes, the earth is round. I'm sorry if you have an issue with that. If you don't believe in a round earth, you are mad, completely bonkers, all right? You might as well go back and live back in Christopher Columbus time. So in the 600th year of Noah's life, the foundation of the earth cracked open, releasing every mighty fountain of water from the deepest hard canopy of water surrounding the atmosphere of the earth collapsed. Imagine that. All of it collapsed, sending a mighty deluge of water for 40 days and nights, as Yahusha had promised. 40 days and nights it rained non-stop, pelting down. This whole thing just fell in. All this water just fell into the earth, and then there's the water that came out of the center of the earth as well. There's not just volcanic and red hot in the center of the earth. There's all sorts of layers going on in there. Do your own research. But the water came out of the earth, and water came from above the earth and flooded the whole earth. And the flood waters rose up, filling the earth with water for nearly a year, covering even the highest of mountaintops by over 10 meters, as every living creature upon the dry land was drowned. And you can, if you don't believe what this is the other thing, if you don't believe what I've written here and you think it's not rendered right, then look at it back in the Hebrew, because I assure you it is. The measurements I'm talking about, when you look at it properly. The highest mountaintops were covered by over 10 meters, as every living creature upon dry land was drowned. But Noah and his family were delivered in the ark, as it moved about on the surface of a shoreless water world. There was a good movie with Kevin Costner years ago it was called Water World. And it was about the water, all that global warming stuff, which is all a lie. But the water had risen up and there was no earth. So the biggest commodity was gasoline. It's like Mad Max on the water. So let's go to the next page. A shoreless water world. They were delivered in the ark. Here we go. Then Yahusha thought of Noah and his family inside the ark, with all the birds and the animals. Things like this in other versions say, and Yahusha remembered. What, did he forget? Oh, damn it. Oh, gee, we better get them off the water, eh? Gee, he remembered. No, it's not like that. It's that whole, I've forgotten the word again, that word I put up on one of the videos, putting human attributes onto Yahusha so we can understand his mind. It didn't just mean he was asleep and suddenly woke up. Oh, damn it, Moses. Noah, sorry. He didn't just wake up and he didn't forget about them. So I've changed it to thought. He thought of Noah. Because it's not about, and the same thing happened in Egypt when he said, he remembered his people and their slavery. What, did he forget? No, it's like putting something in the oven. He was waiting the right amount of time. Yahusha has a time for everything. So it wasn't that just he suddenly remembered, oh, gee, I better do something about that. No, it was the point that, okay, this has happened and this has happened and this has happened and my people are ready and this is ready and these people around here are ready and this whole earth is ready to go. I can come in now and do this at the appointed time. Everything's done in his time, appointed time. So he didn't just forget and suddenly remembered Noah. No, Yahusha thought of Noah and his family inside the ark with all the birds and animals, and he caused a strong wind to blow across the earth calming the waters, both from the sky and from the deep. And the flood began to recede steadily. But the ark still floated for another 5 months after the rain stopped, until it finally rested on top of the mountains of Ararat. So it's the same sort of language. The wind blowing the water away. The wind, does it sound familiar? Wind blowing water up. It's all to do with the covenant. Remember when Moses had to cut across the sea? He blew the water up. You know, he can control nature. He can control all these things. He's master. He's the creator. So it's the same sort of language and same sort of thing that's going on. And I've put a picture there about the repercussions and consequences of the pre-flood, the water canopy. You can see there the ozone and the water canopy and what's happened to the earth since then. You can look at that yourself. Another interesting little tidbit here was the day that the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat was the exact day Yahusha was resurrected from the dead, over 2,300 years later. That's by looking at the days of the certain months. You can line that all. If you don't believe it, you can look it up yourself. But it says it was the exact same day that Yahusha was resurrected from the dead, which is interesting, since Yahusha was taking a massive step in restoring the covenant to mankind. We're not near in our scriptures yet to getting to that point yet, but we can see the whole point of these scriptures is to restore mankind's relationship to his creator, to get them back to the Garden of Eden, which is what they lost, to get them back to everlasting life, to get them back into the covenant, protected covenant home. So, and that's what this is all about, preserving preserving Noach and his family through the waters, delivered through the waters. And aren't we delivered through the waters? And that's what it says there. Deliverance, we're not delivered, we're deliverance by belief through the waters. 3 months later, the tops of the mountains became visible again. And after another 40 days, Noach finally opened the window of his great vessel and sent out a raven. But it kept returning to him because there was still no dry land for it to rest upon. Then Noach sent out a dove to see if the land was dry enough, but the dove kept returning to him also, for the waters were still too deep. There's spiritual significance between the dove and the raven and things like that you can look into if you want to. So the water was still too deep. So Noach waited another 7 days, waited another week, and sent out the dove again, and this time it returned to him with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its mouth. Where'd he get that from? Must be a tree. And Noach knew that it was finally time. So waiting another week, another 7 days, he sent out the dove for the last time, and it did not return to him. He got a life. The dove got a life. Go and get a life, mate. So it was time for Noach to get out and have a life too. So after a year of going stir crazy, after a year of boat life, the waters from the great flood, global flood, important to add things like that, because it wasn't just a continent flood, or a national flood. It was a global flood. It flooded the whole world. And if you stand up on lookouts that are high enough and you look across the land, you can see it just looks like the bottom of the ocean. Everything was stirred up, you know. The whole world was flooded. Yahusha pushed reset, restore to factory settings on his world. So the flood had gone from the earth, the global flood had gone from the earth, and the world was fresh and restored. So Noach removed the coverings from the ark and saw that the surface of the ground was dry. And Yahusha spoke to Noach, saying, "It's time to take your family and all the animals and birds and come back out into the world, allowing the earth to reproduce and populate once more." And Noach, his wife, sons and sons' wives, left the ark and began to start life anew upon a world washed clean. Through his belief and obedience, Noach had a very special relationship with his Creator. Through his belief and obedience. Yahusha was about to make with Noach was not conditional. It was a one-sided covenant. It was a, I'm not going to, no matter what you do, I'm not going to destroy the world again, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Yahusha, no, where are we? Noach had a very special relationship with his Creator because of his belief and his obedience. So Noach made a small platform out of stones. Here we go, with the stone altars. And sacrificing one of every clean beast and bird, he burnt them as an offering of gratefulness to his deliverer, Yahusha. So he'd just spent a year in a big boat with all these blasted animals, and then the minute he gets them out onto the land, he killed he killed some of them. So can you imagine that? He'd be like, oh, what did I keep all these animals for? No, he didn't think like that. He was so overcome with gratefulness and just in awe of his Creator. Can you imagine? Imagine being the only person or only family on the earth. We think, oh, that'd be amazing. But imagine the devastation. Imagine when he got out of the boat, out of the ark, and looked at it. There'd be claw marks in it. Imagine people, that was the only thing that was floating as the water went up. There would have been animals' claws. There would have been people's blood, and maybe not blood, but fingernail marks in it. You know, there would have been, imagine the noise of people outside the boat. Imagine what this family went through, the guilt they would have gone through, listening to all their friends and maybe even other families dying and screaming and drowning. The whole world. So imagine Noach's feeling. He would have just been amazed. He just wouldn't have been fully there, I don't think. He would have just been blown away in his mind, like, what's just happened here? So he made a small platform and sacrificed one of every clean beast and bird, and he burnt them as an offering of gratefulness to his deliverer Yahusha. An offering of gratefulness, because that's how you get Yahusha's attention. You burn up an offering. Blood and offering. That's how you got your Creator's attention back then. And he wanted to please Yahusha. He was so happy. So what's the best way to thank Yahusha? Slaughter animals and offer them up. A burnt offering. So grateful to Yahusha, who had saved he and his family from a worldwide destruction. And Yahusha saw the blood. I want you to pay attention to that phrase there, saw the blood, because it comes up in the scriptures time and time again after this. He saw the blood with Isaac. He saw the blood with Moses. He saw the blood. Yahusha saw the blood, saw the blood, saw the blood. So Yahusha saw the blood from the offering, and a sweet, soothing fragrance of Noach's love offering touched his heart. And he said, even though every imagination of mankind's heart is evil, from the moment he is conceived, every imagination of mankind's heart is evil. From the moment he is conceived. Oh no, he knows my heart. Yeah, you're evil. You're evil. I'm evil, you evil. The only time we're not evil is when we're doing what he tells us to do. Oh, but I donate money to... Did Yahusha tell you to do that? No, everyone else... No, it was evil. Evil. If Yahusha did not... Sin and wickedness and evil is anything Yahusha did not tell you to do. So, we're all evil. We're all filthy. Oh, but I did this. Don't lift up your bloody filthy rags to Yahusha. You're not interested. The only thing he's interested in is obedient behaviour from his bride. So he said, even though mankind's heart is evil from the moment he's conceived, I won't curse the ground or destroy all the animals ever again. For as long as the earth remains, so will all the days and seasons. Summer, winter, seed time and harvest. And the 7-day cycle will continue in my perfect order. Mankind has tried to destroy the 7-day cycle many times, but they've never been able to. It doesn't work. The 7-day cycle, based on the, what's it based on? The sun going round and the moon and all the things it's based on. You can look it up if you're not sure. They haven't been able to change it. And this is what's going to happen. So don't be looking for anything massive destruction or, a global fallout, nuclear war to happen before Yahusha comes back. It may not happen like that. There has been wars in the earth, but it may not happen like that. Look here. As long as the earth remains, so will all the days and seasons. Summer, winter, seed time, harvest, 7-day cycle will continue will just all continue like it did before. As in the days of Noach, Scripture says that. Yahusha says that later on. So in the days of Noach, when everyone was drinking and partying and giving each other in marriage and living and doing what they do on the earth, and then the door was shut. And it was too late. So it will be. Everybody today, what are they doing? No acknowledgement to Yahusha whatsoever. They hate him, in fact. The world hates Yahusha. Giving each other in marriage and doing this and doing that and eating and drinking and partying, and the depravity is getting worse and worse and worse. The thing's religion, and religion's responsible for most of it. And then, bang, the sun will go dark, the moon will glow red, the global air siren across the whole world will happen. And those of us who know this and who are watching and waiting, desperately waiting for the end, because there's nothing else, to look forward to, we'll be so happy, won't we? That's what our hope and our expectation is clinging to, the end. Take us out of this filthy world. Then Yahusha spoke blessings of instruction and encouragement over Noach and his family. Go and have lots of sons and daughters and fill the earth again. Every clean animal and bird and creature and fish now fears and dreads you, for I have given them over to you as your food, just as I gave you the green plants to eat before. So here's a bit of a shift here. Adam and 𝗂𝗚 were told to eat all the green plants, and now Yahusha is allowing mankind to eat clean animals as well. Clean animals. I added that there, clean animals, because in the Hebrew that's what it means, and that's what he's talking about, and that's the understanding. So I've made it easy for people. Clean animals. Every clean animal and bird and creature and fish now fears and dreads you, for I've given them over to you as your food, just as I gave you the green plants to eat before. Just don't eat any of their flesh raw with the blood. It's all about the blood. Don't eat their flesh raw with the blood, which is their life still in them, for eating that is unclean. Our life is in our blood. You can't have any life without any blood. People say, oh, you can't live without a brain. No, that's technically true, but your brain is just there to make your body move. Oh, you can't live without a heart. No, but your heart is just there to pump the blood. You cannot live without blood. You cannot live without any blood. The life, and Scripture says that, our life is in our blood. So don't eat anything with blood in it. Don't go ordering your steaks rare, swimming in blood. That's unclean. That's disgusting. All life is indeed very important, but none so valuable as the blood life of mankind. For in my image you were created. Therefore, if anyone murders another, I shall require that person's life in exchange. And we saw that happen with Cain. It took a couple of 100 years, but he was murdered because he murdered his brother. And obviously mankind for the last 1700 years were doing the same thing. Murdering one another, devouring one another, sleeping with unclean spirits, and producing beasts that were then, sleeping and rooting and devouring everything in its sight, just carnal, savage beasts. So, enough of that. Here's where we go now. Today, this is very important, and I'm going to end on this. Today I raise up. This is the first time he said this. We know Adam and 𝗂𝗚 were living in a covenant agreement. We know that all the people that were obedient knew about the covenant agreement, his instructions basically. But here we see it written, worded for the first time. Today I raise up my covenant, eternal blood covenant of deliverance with you, Noach, with you and all your descendants, all the generations to come, and with every animal, bird, fish, and creeping creature, that I, Yahuwah, will never again destroy all life on this planet with a flood. And here is the sign, the outward sign of that promise between me and you, the rainbow in the clouds. Every time I see that rainbow in the sky, I will remember. Does he need reminding? No. Every time I see that rainbow, I will remember my eternal blood covenant with you, Noach, and with every living creature. For your behaviour has made you the mediator of this blood covenant between me and you. And this covenant agreement of Yahusha's restraint, this is what the agreement was really about, his restraint, was one-sided in that Yahusha would keep his promise whether mankind obeyed him or not. He promised never to destroy the world again with a flood. And we still see the rainbow today after the rain. We see the rainbow. Does that mean, so how could that covenant be, how could all the old, because that's an old covenant. We don't live under the old covenant. Well, Yahusha still does. That's an old covenant. We live under the new covenant. No, there's only one covenant. And last I saw, the rainbow was still out there after the rain. That covenant still stands. All the covenants still stand. It's all about deliverance. And the great lengths Yahusha went to restore mankind back to the blood covenant of deliverance. It had to be a blood covenant because Yahusha can't be involved with anything that's not covered with blood. Because blood was shed the moment Adam and Ḥawwa disobeyed him, and blood had to continually be shed so that mankind could have any kind of relationship with him. It's the whole concept of the Stargate. It's the whole concept of the interdimensional rift. Adam and Ḥawwa had, as the scriptures say, open heavens. They had an interdimensional relationship, and that was bridged by Yahusha himself and their obedience. They were obedient, and he allowed that to happen. But those two dimensions can't be together while there's lawlessness, because lawlessness can't be reigning. Lawlessness can't be involved with anything perfect. And Yahusha is perfect, his dimension as well. So he can't be involved with that. So ever since the garden, mankind had to try and connect with him through these stone altars where they would offer up the blood, burn up the blood of the animal, which the sweet smelling savour, fragrance would go into the nostrils of Yahusha. He was pleased because he could see that if somebody was going to go to that much effort, they must have a repentant heart. They must be repenting. They must want to connect with me. He wants us to connect with him. He says somewhere, even the smallest attempt we make to connect with him, he will run the rest of the way. What about the prodigal son? The father saw from a great distance that his son, even way up on the mountain there, he saw him coming and ran the rest of the way to him. Yahusha just wants to see that spark of effort, that he knows who we are. He created us. He knows what feeble, flawed, hideous creatures we are, and how, tripping over our own feet most of the time and getting in our own way most of the time. He knows. So if he sees us making any kind of effort towards him, he runs the rest of the way to hug us, to greet us, to lift us up and encourage us. He doesn't like, come on, I'm still waiting. No, he's not like that. He loves us so much, brothers and sisters, and that's the thing that gets overlooked so much when we look at the instructions, when we look at the laws and rules and regulations and blood covenant and all this stuff. We don't look at the fact that this whole book is a book of love. The whole point of raising up an eternal blood covenant, it's eternal. It doesn't change. He adds little bits and pieces and fulfills certain parts of it. What does fulfill mean? It means that other parts aren't important anymore because he's taken on that part. So the covenant is the same, brothers and sisters, and it's a covenant of love. And of course, the instructions haven't changed. The instructions became formalized on Mount Sinai, but the instructions haven't changed. For clean, right living, it's still the same. So it's really an amazing, if you put yourself in Noah's shoes, imagine going through this, brothers and sisters, seeing all this happen, all the people around you die, and, having these experiences, and then being delivered through the floodwaters. So it's phenomenal, brothers and sisters, when we look at it. We're going to do the Tower of Babel next episode, and we'll just finish up the last bit about Noah's sons next episode. So I love you, brothers and sisters. Stay strong, and I hope you're enjoying these scriptures. It's been a phenomenal blast going through them, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. 𝐵545
Big mouth.
You didn't want me to know
but you were never at the throne.
you're the offspring of wickedness.
You're giant freaks of lawlessness,
You're tormented, earthbound.
with all your fathers chained down.
Your mother's true colors show.
By giving birth, the people know.
I know who you are. I know who you are. It's taken me thus far.
I know who you are.
Big bad Nefilim man.
The lie, deceit, and the burden man.
Big bad Nefilim man.
Big bad Nefilim man.
Brewing potions, taking herbs.
The women's wombs became disturbed.
Then evil spirits planted seed.
To end mankind and make it bleed.
The real reason for the flood.
A master sent you back to mud.
Now your souls can find no rest.
You murmur lies, you trodden pest.
I know who you are.
I know who you are.
It's taken me thus far.
Now I know who you are.
Big bad Nefilim man.
The lie, deceit, and burden man.
Big bad Nefilim man.
Bad Nefilim man.
You're the big bad Nefilim man.
Lie, deceit, and burden man.
You're the big bad Nefilim man.
Bad Nefilim man.
I once thought you had great power,
For such fear I came and bowed.
but you were never from above.
With Lucifer and joy and love.
So just like Enoch told me so,
Unto the world this truth will go.
you are not a mighty
You're
force.
sexless beings of demon sauce.
I know who you are.
I know who you are.
It's taken me thus far.
Now I know just who you are.
You're the big bad Nefilim man.
I deceit, burden man.
Thus far.
Now I know
Bad Nefilim man.
I deceit and
Nefilim man.
You're the big bad Nefilim man. Yahusha is in my heart, awoken me, set me apart. I've no power over you. I have a body with choices too. Now I know who you are.
Who you are.
I know
I know
who you are.
who you are.
It's taken me
It's taken me thus far.
Now I know
I know
who you are.
who you are. I know who you are. I know who you are. Taken me thus far.
Now I know
Who you are.
you're the big bad
Big bad
Nefilim man.
Nefilim man. I know
Nefilim man.
Nefilim man.
Bad
Big bad.
Nefilim man. Big bad Nefilim man.
He's a big bad Nefilim man.
Lie, deceit, and burden man.
Bad Nefilim man.
Big bad Nefilim
He's a big
man.
bad. Big bad.
Big bad.
Big bad. He's a naughty boy. Big bad. Stop listening. I said stop listening.